Do you remember that there was a time when people made their sausages at home simply by grinding the meat themselves? Or a time before pre-sifted flour so people had to do it themselves with features that they had in those kitchens? Oh, those were such simple times. But these days it seems like these features are no longer a part of our kitchen any longer, and some have vanished, and we have almost forgotten that they once existed. So, have you ever wondered why certain kitchen features no longer exist? Or why does it seem that kitchen items we could almost not live without have also become not just irrelevant, but also forgotten? Well, if you want answers to these questions, then you bet this video is most definitely for you. The manual hand mixer. Many of us might remember this being a constant presence in our kitchen. This manual hand mixer represented culinary diligence. Because unlike the hand mixers we have today, you needed a steady hand and a whole lot of elbow grease to operate it. With its gear and beaters, homemakers could practically make everything with it, from fluffy cakes to even tasty marigans. Kids who saw their mother turning the handle already knew there would be something warm and comforting in the oven. The manual mixer reminds me of a time when the process of making a cake was as much as the result of the cake. But this manual hand mixer is not only the kitchen equipment that would make you nostalgic for old times. So what is the next kitchen feature that has faded into history? The icebox.
Howdy folks, got a project to introduce here. This is a 1934 White Seal all porcelain icebox.
No, not the jewelry franchise, but an old kitchen feature. For those who were not born during the 1950s, ever wondered how people frozen foods before the advent of the refrigerator? Well, the icebox was the answer. The icebox was a large wooden box that was lined with zinc and tin, and was where families stored their perishables, which were kept cool by blocks of ice. The icebox was a breakthrough of its time and was almost impossible. But it did have a downside. Its constant reliance on the delivery of large ice blocks also meant that keeping food cold was a grueling and laboring process. And not only that, it was less reliable than the modern-day refrigerator we have today. Although the advent of the refrigerator pushed the icebox into oblivion, its name still lives on as a fond reminder of a past we miss. The icebox played an important role in the preservation of foods, because during those times the only means of preserving food was either salting, smoking, or pickling. But with the invention of the icebox came another means of preservation, which allowed for a wide range of foods, including fruits, vegetables, and even dairy. So this not only expanded the range of foods preserved, it also fueled an entire industry, which was the harvesting and delivery of natural ice. But the icebox is not the only kitchen cabinet that has been lost in history. Let's explore another cabinet that was a household favorite, the Hoosier cabinet.
Hoosier cabinets like this one were must-haves in homes in the first half of the 20th century. They not only stored kitchen staples like flour and sugar, but they also held workable utensils inside.
This was a centerpiece in many households back in the 50s. The Hoosier cabinet was an all-in-one baking and storage cabinet. It was named after its origin in Indiana, the Hoosier state. The furniture had a storage space for pots, pans, and baking ingredients, and also a work surface. The Hoosier cabinet was the cabinet that crawled so other modern cabinets could walk. It was the cabinet that inspired the modern-day cabinet. The cabinet had built-in flour sitters and spice racks. But as the kitchen cabinet became more famous, the Hoosier cabinet sadly began to fade out, but it still remains in our memory. Now let's talk about another kitchen feature that wasn't built for the kitchen but was a common sight in most kitchens. What could this feature be? The rotary phone.
How's it going, Daddy? Hey, you cool cat. What's happening, man?
Although it was not for the kitchen, many families believed it was better there, so it was often found in this part of the home. Many dinners, lunches, and breakfasts in so many homes have been characterized by the ringing of these phones. The rotary phone was every home's lifeline to the outside world. It brought different homes together. The sound of the circular dial and the ring after each dial was a fixture in many homes, as kitchen conversations were threatened by the cord of the rotary phone. Because of the rotary phone's inability to be moved, people could hardly multitask while having a conversation, so conversations were then more focused. Oh, how we miss these days. Butter molds. These were the unsung heroes of the 1950s. These intricately and beautifully made molds were a staple in every kitchen. These molds were used to shape homemade butters into decorative shapes. These molds were used to shape the butter into elaborate designs like flowers, animals, and even geometric shapes. These molds allowed homemakers to showcase their skills by taking plain, ordinary-looking homemade butter and turning it into a table's centerpiece. But what most might not know is that butter molds date back to ancient times when the design in the molds was often symbolic, as certain patterns were meant to bring good luck. And this historical background adds an additional layer of depth to these simple kitchen tools. Sadly, these molds could not stand the test of time because, with the invention of prepackaged butter, the use of these molds dwindled over the years. But the memories still live on in our hearts. Glass milk bottles. The familiar clink of milk bottles when they were being delivered to different doorsteps was a familiar sound that characterized many people's childhoods. These reusable bottles represented a bygone era of sustainability, as milk was delivered straight from local dairies, and families would leave their used bottles outside, which would be collected and then placed with full ones. It was recycling at its finest that existed before modern-day recycling, but unfortunately not all good things last forever, because with new milk bottles made out of plastic, milk bottles have all but faded out. But we do not have to miss them so much because they have become collectibles, so a piece of history is being preserved. The manual meat grinder.
Get a good view of that. That's some work. I've still got the rest of the roast to go through.
As a child in the 50s going into the kitchen, one familiar sight was an iron contraption clamped to the edge of the kitchen counter. The iron contraption was the manual meat grinder. The manual meat grinder allowed families to grind their own meat for sausages or mincemeat. This was not just a contraption for grinding meat. It also represented a time when people knew what went into their food. But as pre-ground meat became readily available and the kitchen gradually moved to convenience, the manual meat grinder presence faded in most kitchens. Although the use of the meat grinder has become incredibly rare, it is a constant reminder of the hands-on approach to cooking and self-sufficiency. The bread box.
I like bread and butter. I like toast and jam. That's what baby feeds me. I'm a loving man.
This once common fixture in the kitchen has now become a very rare fixture in houses of today. These bread boxes kept breads and pastries safe and away from pests. These boxes once stood proudly on the countertop of almost every home. These boxes were made of wood and came in either in a utilitarian style or stylish. But the bread box was not just functional, but also a statement piece that reflected the style of the homemaker's kitchen. But with the changes in bread packages and preservatives, the bread box has gone out of style. But those who remember the bread box know that it was a reminder of a time when bread was a common food in every home. Formica.
Oh, I like that one. I prefer that one on the right.
Formica countertops brought a revolution to kitchens in the early 20th century. It was known for its affordability and diverse designs, and they somehow injected a burst of color and style into American kitchens. But Formica was just easy on the eyes. They were also practical because they were very easy to clean, but unfortunately, with the advent of natural stones and engineered materials in modern kitchens, the use of Formica has diminished in American households. However, it is impossible to find a retro-style house without Formica, so even though its use has diminished, it is safe to say it still has a place in our hearts. But does the next feature have a place in our hearts too? Let's find out. Electric coil stove.
Works beautifully.
We're back in rotation.
And I'm sure we'll pull her out again someday. In the meantime, we're going to replace it with a 1954 Frigidaire.
Before we had the sleek designs of modern-day stoves, we had the electric coil stove. At the time, the electric coil stove marked a significant advancement in technology. The coil stoves were a wonder that introduced not only safety to cooking, but also convenience. And they were also a sign of a persistent quest for technological advancement in the 20th century. The electric coil stove revolutionized meal preparations in America, and their immediate widespread adoption was an indication of the shift from the regular cooking methods, highlighting the embrace of innovation in daily life. However, change is constant. The evolution of kitchen appliances gave birth to the electrical cooking stove, offering better safety features and aesthetic appeal to kitchens. And all of a sudden, the electric coil stove became a thing of the past. The milk door.
For those who have been around for a while, you may remember the original milk door in our kitchen, where the milkman used to deliver jugs of milk in the 50s. Our inspector actually found that 1949 milk jug under our house.
If you thought that only dogs had their own doors in the house, then you were wrong, because back in the early 20th century, houses had built small doors that were used for milk deliveries. These were a genius reply to daily milk deliveries. The milk door ensured that milks were kept safe and were easily accessible. As there was no refrigerator back in those times, the milk door helped with the preservation of household milks. But sadly, the milk door is no longer a part of homes anymore, and its disappearance marks the end of an era when delivery of perishable food to the doorstep was a part of an everyday process. Butler's pantry. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, a very grand home must have a space in the kitchen referred to as a butler's pantry, as it was a symbol of elegance and sophistication. This special place was used for storing and preparing meals to succeed the house. The butler's pantry was an indication of high social standards and showed just how well-to-do a family was back in those days. It was an integral part of the home's entertaining and dining experience, and was not just merely a storage space, but lifestyle choices evolved and new home designs came. This once important part of a home became less common and evolved into modern-day storage solutions. Because people wanted a lesser, grander staff and a more casual dining experience, the butler's pantry just had to go. But what can be said about the next lost kitchen feature? Dumbwaiters. These were more common in multi-story homes and buildings of the 19th century and still early 29th centuries. Dumbwaiters were like mini elevators and were designed to transport food items between floors. Dumbwaiters showcased the era's ingenuity in maximizing space and functionality. So before the convenience of modern elevators, dumbwaiters offered a practical solution for transporting items, especially in larger homes and buildings. As architectural styles and technology evolved over the years, the use of dumbwaiters declined, but their reminder in old buildings brings back memories of an era of practical innovation and mechanical genius. California coolers. It was almost impossible to not know what this was. It was the coolest thing around in the late 19th century and early 20th century. It was a familiar sight in many American homes, and it was hard to find a home that did not have it back then. These coolers added a touch of rustic charm to home, almost like the icebox. They were designed to keep perishable goods fresh in an era where refrigerators were unheard of. California coolers were typically built into a wall in the kitchen, and they often featured a series of shelves that took advantage of airflow to cool and preserve foods. The practicality of the California cooler made them a beloved feature in many kitchens in America. However, with the advent of the refrigerator, the Carlifonia cooler became a distant memory. They weren't the only features who became a distant memory, though. Louvered cabinet doors. Windows back in the good old days were not the only thing that had louvers. Some of you can remember the louver cabinet doors. These doors were prized for their ventilation properties and their distinctive look. But because of their slatted design, most homemakers found it quite difficult to clean, and before we knew it, convenience began to take precedence over aesthetics. And then louver cabinet doors began to slowly fade away with time. Lazy Susan and corner cabinet.
Back with another restock, and this time I'm refilling my K-cups and flavored water inserts. In this cabinet, I have a mix of wedge-shaped organizers and rectangle-shaped organizers, and you'll find them both linked on my Amazon shop. Next up, I'm tackling organizing my upper corner cabinet.
A vintage kitchen back in the day cannot be said to be a vintage kitchen if there was no Lazy Susan and a corner cabinet. These items were so popular in vintage homes back in the 19th and 20th centuries. They were rotating trays that offered a practical organizational solution to many homes, offering easy access to items stored in the back of the cabinet without allowing the items on the shelf to be brought down. But despite its initial benefits, Lazy Susans began to lead to disorganization and clutter as items became buried under forgotten goods. And as kitchen organization evolved, Lazy Susans became old-fashioned and more efficient storage options were adopted. Lazy Susans weren't the only old-fashioned features, but was the next on our list old-fashioned or vintage. Formal dining areas. This was a hallmark of vintage kitchens. Most families can fondly remember coming together to have their meals in the kitchen where the meal itself was prepared. These formal dining tables were complete with banquette or breakfast nooks, and these cozy nooks provided a charming setting for family meals. Unfortunately, as the modern-day lifestyle embraced a more casual and open-plan layout, the formal dining area became a relic from the past. But the memories of the warm meals shared around the formal dining tables will fondly live on in our memory, as well as the next on our lists: canister sets.
A set in aluminum from the 50s. You can see right here on top it says flour, and then there's the sugar, and they're all kind of nested inside.
Back in the day, kitchens were adorned with a delightful array of canister sets, each carefully crafted to hold essential ingredients and add a touch of whimsy to the culinary space of the home. Picture these small canisters for salt and sugar, adorned with frog and salt pepper shakers, and even charming mushroom sugar canisters. These canisters were not just practical, they were also stylish too. Americans took their kitchen seriously, and having a set of canisters was a must-have for every home. However, with the introduction of minimalist style, canister sets have all but gone out of style. So the next time you see a canister set, do not hesitate to grab it, because you would be bringing a piece of kitchen history to your house. Linoleum flooring. Linoleum flooring was a defining feature in homes from the early to the mid-1900s. Linoleum wasn't just cheap and sturdy, it was also that style that made a statement. Linoleum's vivid patterns reflected its trend for decorative, functional home interiors at the time. Linoleum's easy maintenance and durability made it a popular choice in the bustling family kitchen of the era. Developed in the late 1800s, linoleum was a breakthrough in flooring, being water-resistant and relatively easy to clean compared to its predecessor. However, with the rise of more modern, versatile materials like in the late 20th century, the sales of linoleum started to decline. Today, it is treasured more for its nostalgic charms than its practicality, but that's not the only kitchen feature that would cause nostalgia. Dining nooks. Dining nooks, also known as breakfast nooks, were a popular feature in many mid-20th century homes. These cozy, built-in seating areas were usually found in the corner of the kitchen. They provided a casual and convenient space for family meals. Dining nooks often had benches with storage underneath, making them practical as well as charming. They became less common as open floor plans gained popularity. However, they remain a beloved feature in some vintage and cottage-style homes. Dining nooks were inspired by the cozy seating arrangements found in cafes and pubs. Tiled countertops. Tiled countertops were a popular choice in kitchens, especially in the 1940s and 1950s. The countertops were loved for their durability and wide variety of patterns available, and people liked how smooth and durable the tiles were, making kitchen maintenance simpler. However, the grout between the tiles got dirty and hard to keep clean. Over time, smoother surfaces like laminate and solid surfaces became more popular because they were easier to maintain. By the 1980s, tile countertops started to disappear from modern kitchens. Most historical homes still have their original tiled countertops, showing how well they can stand the test of time. What if I tell you ironing boards have also been lost in time? Pull down ironing boards.
These little fold-out ironing boards.
Pull-down ironing boards were once a common feature in many kitchen and laundry rooms. These boards were built into the walk and could be pulled down when needed. This design saved space and made ironing more convenient for busy homemakers. Pull-down ironing boards were especially popular in the mid-29th century, when homes were designed with efficiency in mind. Over time, as electric irons and separate laundry rooms became more common, the need for pull-down ironing boards decreased. Today, you might still find them in older homes or as a nostalgia feature in retro kitchen design. Some vintage pull-down ironing boards even had built-in lights and electrical outlets for convenience, but if that surprised you, wait till you hear the next one. The wall-mounted can opener. The wall-mounted can opener was once a common sight in many kitchens. These handy gadgets were attached to the wall, making it easy to open cans without taking up counter space. Popular from the 1950s to the 1970s, they were a must-have for busy households. The design allowed for quick and easy access during meal prep, but over time they were replaced by electric can openers and handheld models. As kitchen designs evolved, the need for wall-mounted gadgets decreased. Vintage wall-mounted can openers are now collectible items often found in an antique shop. But did you know there are other built-in wall features in the kitchen that have been lost in time? Built-in flour sifters. Built-in flour sifters were once a common feature in many kitchens, especially in the early 20th century. These sifters were typically integrated into kitchen cabinets, making it easy for homemakers to sift flours directly into bowls. They were designed to save time and reduce mess, which was a big help in a busy kitchen, as baking from scratch was more common back then. Having a built-in sifter was a practical addition, but with the advent of pre-sifted flour and electric mixers, the need for built-in sifters declined. Today, they are mostly found in vintage kitchens or as collectibles. Some built-in sifters could hold up to 5 doyelobs of flour at a time, making them quite handy for large baking. Well, if you thought that a safe was only used to keep valuables, then you are wrong, because in the 19th century, a safe had other uses. If you want to find out what, then keep watching the video. The meat safe. The meat safe was a common kitchen feature in the past, used to keep meat and other perishable foods before the invention of refrigerators made from wood or metal. These safes had mesh or perforated panels to allow air circulation while keeping insects out. The meat safe was often placed in cook-shaded areas of the kitchen or pantry to maximize their effectiveness. Meat safes work by protecting food from spoilage while allowing airflow to prevent moisture buildup, which usually leads to spoilage. The meat safes were an essential part of food storage in households, especially in warm climates. As refrigeration technology improved and became more accessible, they gradually disappeared from kitchens. Some meat safes were designed for a compartment for ice to help keep the content even cold. The rolling pin drawer. The rolling pin drawer was a common feature in many old kitchens. This special drawer was designed to store a rolling pin, keeping it useful for baking tasks. It often had a curved shape to fit the rolling pin perfectly. This rolling pin made it easy for bakers to quickly grab their rolling pin without rummaging through other utensils. As kitchen designs evolved, these specialized drawers became less common, modern kitchen versatile storage solutions that can hold a variety of items. Antique kitchen cabinets with rolling pins. Drawers are now considered collectibles and are valued for their charm and practicality. Central vacuum cleaners.
I've made a couple videos about the 2X central vacuums, and this is my most recent addition. I've had two other than this one. Both my previous 2X machines had been from the 1910s, I think 1912 and 1913. This one is a little later. And
Central vacuum cleaners were once considered a modern luxury in homes. These systems were built into walks and had outlets in each room, where a hose can be attached to the vacuum. Invented in the early 20th century, they became popular in the 1950s and 1960s. Homemakers like them because they are very quiet and more powerful than the normal vacuum cleaners. However, central vacuum systems were expensive to install and required professional maintenance as portable vacuum cleaners became more powerful and affordable. The central vacuum system started to fade away. A few early central vacuum systems used a water-based method to collect dust, which helped to reduce allergens in the air. Talking about all these old kitchen features from the past sure did bring back fond memories from the good old days. So tell me which of these old features you miss the most, or which of these features do you remember the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Retro America so you don't miss the next ones.